I know I can't do a proper endo. Destroyed the hub and pull. You okay there, bud? Because of the way this is supposed to be. And that's just stupid. I'd rather just not run any rear brakes. Really stupid move on my part. The weakest point I think would be these bolts here. Okay, so that isn't really why I wanted to bring you out here though, but since it is finished, I figured let's give you a little rundown on what is going on there. Okay, now, what I really want to show you is what we're about to dig in back here, because I'm honestly not sure if I ever really showed you what was going on back here. So let's just get into it. So you guys know that one day I was riding and the rotor broke. So basically what had happened is I was trying to lift the rear wheel. Basically I was trying to do an endo. Okay, now mind you, I know I can't do a proper endo, but I was just trying to get the rear, I was just trying to see if the front brakes were working strong enough after I put the new pads on, because they were really gripping, to lift the back of the bike up. Now, mind you, I did not stand up. I was just trying to do it all through the brake, and that was it. I wasn't trying to sit up. I wasn't standing. I was literally still sitting on the seat. I was doing it completely wrong. I know how to do it kind of ish, but the way I was doing it was definitely not the right way to do it. Either way, that's how I did it. And once I couldn't stop because I was going far too fast, I clamped on the rear brake so I could stop, and that's how I broke it. So the problem here is everything's broke. You can see I had it on one of these little, I don't know what you call it. It's like a little universal mount to put rear brakes on a bike like this. Well, it worked very well. It held it where I needed it to, all that jazz, but it just wasn't strong enough, because when it came down to it, you could see it just buckled it right out because it wasn't strong enough, even though I did triangulate it, because originally I didn't have this bar. This bar, when I first put the brakes together, I didn't have this, and I was like, it should be good enough, and I only had this stock thing and this thing. Now, this is technically supposed to be up and down, okay? See how it goes in line with the dropouts? I didn't want to have to take the brakes apart every time I get a flat tire if I'm out on the road, because that just stinks. So I went to great lengths to line this up, which means I had to put another bracer bar in and something else in. Well, it seemed like it was doing pretty good until it wasn't, you know what I mean? So there's obviously a weak point and I need to fix it. The other thing is I'm just not 100% happy with this. So when I first built it, you know, I used the bottom half of a kid seat. I thought it was a good thing. It was already basically pre-made, something I could just bolt onto the bike for the most part with minimal work and what have you. Well, yes, it is for the most part plug and play thing. Basically the baby seat, okay, it came out of a mold. And that was part of why I liked it, because it was molded plastic into a design that they could use. Well, problem is, you know, I carry my backpack in here, I carry a lot of other stuff, and it's just not strong enough. So I need to build something else. Now, Tweaker, which is also down at the moment, just destroyed the hub and pull. You okay there, bud? You drinking a little much today? Can you fix this one? This one needs to be fixed. So you'll learn more about this pretty soon, but I didn't take it fully apart yet, but the bearings fell out of it while I was riding it. It is a major problem. So we need to fix the original wheel again, and then we'll put it back on here. So what I brought you over here for is this. This is a very old rack. When I say very old, it is about almost 2 years old. It's not new, but you know I have done a lot with it. Now I have carried bicycles in the back of the rack, you know, dragging the rear wheel with the forks actually zip tied through the bottom. So, did you get it stuck? Hold on, I help. Here you go. You're welcome. It has done a lot. I'm thinking about building a rack like this on Jokester, except I think I'm gonna keep the basket the way Jokester is. Now I really like the rack itself. It's a little bit lightweight for what I'm thinking, but I'm thinking if I build a rack similar to that, it will get rid of all this extra stuff. It should do very well for me. This is a coaster brake bike from the gate. Okay, so putting rotored brakes on this bike is not an easy task for them to fit and fit well with no issues also be able to make it a daily like I want to do, and I am doing with it, if you get a flat. But the problem for me is I don't want to have to take this all apart every time I got to take my rear tire off. Even if it's not out on the road and I'm riding and I get a flat, I don't want to have to take the brakes off just because I got this crazy setup to have rotored brakes. At that point, I'd rather just not run any rear brakes and run all front brakes, which I'm not going to do. So it is crucial for me to have the dropouts and this line up. So I need to come up with a better system, and I think the better system will be to just build my own rack. So I just wanted to show you every little bit of this so you guys can see exactly what it looks like. All right, I'm getting ready to put everything together, but when I originally assembled this and when I do it again, I am going to be using a red Loctite. Again, anything to do with the brakes, I like to red Loctite it, and since this is not only just the brakes but also the main drive for the bike, I red Loctite it. Since it is red Loctite, when you pull it apart, this is the bolts that I will be reusing. Now you can see all that white that's on them, that is the red Loctite that's still in the threads. So I will clean these off. I'll probably just honestly heat these up with my torch to melt it off. To make sure all this is good, I'm running the tap down through the threads. I'm not re-tapping the threads or anything, I'm just cleaning it all out. Let's take this one out and let's see if there's any gunk that came out. I will take it outside when I'm all done and I will blow it all out, but you can see it cleaned out all the red Loctite and made the threads nice and purty again. Hey, come here, I want to see you a little bit. Say something to the camera. Okay, so I haven't really shown anybody much of anything. I really didn't even record much of what I was doing to the bike. I recorded a little bit in the front, or even a lot of it, but it was a lot of duplicate footage. But no matter what, I haven't recorded anything about the rear of the bike, and the rear of the bike is where the main problem was for me. So we're gonna try to get into a little bit more depth on what exactly. Look at this, just found this buried into the tread of my bike, but she's full, she's not losing air. Look at that piece of metal that I just found in there. It was level with the tread. Just goes to show you, these Surface Drifter tires are great. Basically just Surface brand, period, with that flat protection system. I wish they'd sponsor the channel because I would push them more than I'm already pushing them. I don't know. I make nothing from it, but I mean, let's face it, they're good tires. When I originally built this bike, I was like, okay, I needed to figure something out to make the rear brakes work. Now, you guys know I don't weld aluminum. Now, granted, I could make it out of steel because I can weld steel, but steel adds a lot of weight. All in all, with the new rack, I'm trimming weight from what used to be there. So I knew from the day that I built this bike that this was not going to be the final iteration of how I do this, because I just wasn't happy with the way it attached and how the brakes did everything. So what I did, now I did take some of the design features from the old one and use it on this one, just because simplicity reasons, basically. Now, I didn't show much of me making this, but this is just set on here for now. The final thing I'm going to be doing is the rest of the attachment for the caliper, and I'll show you what that's going to be. But so this was the same spot as this one. Okay, this is the actual piece off of this plastic one, but when it was on the plastic one, it was inverted. It was right side up. I have it upside down. It also had pieces of metal that continued. I cut them off so I'd be able to slide it on this flat bar, which I don't know if you can see how thick it is. This is I don't know, 1/4 inch thick square aluminum. Okay, square bar aluminum, I don't know what to call it. I did use angle aluminum again, but I'll explain more there. So this here comes up and wraps around. So I needed a place to anchor the whole thing from pulling backwards and forwards. Okay, so you need to have it secure there, and you needed to have it secured down at the bottom. There isn't a tremendous amount of weight going down. It's really backwards, and there is the bouncing and stuff, but the main thing all this needs to do is this needs to support where the rotors are going to be. So I needed something strong this time. So once this is anchored here, once I have my two M8s into the dropouts down here, this thing is solid. These holes are zip tie holes, so I'm gonna be able to pass the zip tie through and back up and zip tie my basket down, so I'm not worried about that. I also have, the basket will sit from about here. Any weight on the main part is already in front of the axle, which is important to me. If the tank was to go here, it would then be in front of the axle. I want to keep the weight off the axle or the pivot point of behind the axle, because that's a lot more weight. I only know that because just having a little bit past the axle really wears down quickly on the life of the axle and bending, bless you, and what have you. So this is the way we went with it. I did put a coat of paint on everything. I'll have to put another coat of paint because I was just seeing how it was going and, you know, trying to visualize in my head and what was going on. So there's a strap that goes from here, wraps around, and then it just bolts in here, and that will hold it here. That will also, because I was able to put it on this part of the tube, it gives me full range of motion for my seat if I want to move it and what have you. So there's no interference with the seat moving or flexing because it is a shock seat. Now I don't have this bolted in yet, but it's bolted in here, bolted in there. This thing is rock solid. The other one, when I would move it and wiggle it, okay, it would wiggle basically the same as this one's wiggling now, not bolted in, except it would wiggle the bike a little more, but it had a lot of flex in it. As strong as it was, there was a lot of weak points and a lot of flex. Now this is different. This is just regular stock angle aluminum I got from Home Depot. I got two different sizes. The main top bars, I forget, is what, an inch by an inch maybe, and maybe an inch and a half by inch and a half. I never measured it, I forget what it was marked. The bottom one is like inch by inch or something. It's just regular angle aluminum, nothing crazy special. Because once this is bolted here with the other piece, now this is, I don't know, this came out of a dentist office, to be honest with you. It was just a big piece of aluminum. It was all, I had a couple pieces of it that I got from my buddy that scraps metal. And I took it because I'm like, you know what, one day I will be able to use that on what? I don't know, but something. And here we go. So I put this up front. Originally I was gonna do another piece, something like this, or maybe this thick, but then I was like, you know what? I need to be able to get this really strong for an anchor point, because this is gonna be the other main anchor point. So this holds on with two M8 underneath. I drilled a bigger hole so I can get the socket or whatnot through, so I could tighten everything down. Anywhere there was square tubing, same with this. That's why this is like this, so I could get in here with the wrench to tighten them down, because I couldn't get a box end wrench or an open end wrench in there to do it. In the back, so there is one bolt holding it rigidity like that, and then they both come down into a same spot down here like this. I do cut it at an angle like that, like if it does start to get flex in it or whatnot, it does just butt against the main support. Let me show you this really quick. Oh, actually, I don't know if you'll be able to see it. This, now, I put a lot of thought into this because I was like, you know, is this gonna really take away from the strength? But see how it's cut out down here? So I cut the side out on both sides because it bolts in to the dropouts, but the dropouts are welded to the main tube, the rear tube of the bike. So I had to cut out or grind out really the one wall a little. Not worried about the holes. I mean, in the end, something's gonna give, but it's not gonna be this. If the brakes were to fail on me again, honestly, the weakest point I think right now is gonna be these bolts here. These are just 8.8 bolts, and what they do is they hold on this other tube. That's why it's not painted yet. But there's no, like, if you have this off or bolted on, there's no flex. If this doesn't move, this ain't moving. And that is for this. Now, I still have to get the spacing 100% correct. You know, I already drilled the holes, but I do have a feeling that I'm going to be ovaling them out so that they slide for final adjustments. But so you can get the basic idea, this is what it is. Now I gotta finish doing it, so that's what I'm down here about to do, but I haven't recorded anything about the rear rack since I started it. So I just wanted to bring you guys in and show you a little bit more. Don't mind it's not bolted in anywhere, so it's not lined up at all. But the bolts about line up with that. That's where the final adjustment's gonna have to be. Right now I'm about to make the spacer that takes up that space, 8.5 millimeters. This is at full lock. It's about 6.5 space, so 8.5 will put me about dead center, and then it give me another, you know, 1.5 millimeters the other way to go. So because this slides, the caliper's supposed to float for adjustments, so I want to make sure I keep and retain the stock movement spacing. All in all, guys, I think we are pretty close, so you can get a better look. So all I did was just take a flap wheel and start shaving it out just to get the space so it fits over, because I want the bar to bolt up to this flat. It needs to be flat up against this and on the other side. when I bolt it, but then this would be in the way. So that's why I had to get this shape or as close as I could to keep the bar flat. And that's where this comes in. So when it bolts nice and flat up to this, everything else is straight and square, and that's it. So you see holes on each side. I drill them bigger obviously to get the socket through, because I wouldn't be able to get down in here with the wrenches anyway. It was the only way I could do it since I don't weld aluminum. All custom, obviously, it's all custom. But as you can see, it's super solid, really secure. I haven't rode my bike in probably 3 months, maybe more, not even joking. But once this is done, the rack is on, I'm done with the bike for a little bit because I need to fix the wheel on the tweaker because the bearings fell out of that, as you know. And I got the other motor that actually belongs on the bike upstairs, almost put together. I just got to finish putting the clutch in. And then that motor's got to go on Benny's new bike, and that's something we'll bring you in to see. But the end result is I need to get tweaker back up and running with my motor and just complete, so I have a backup bike, and then we can start doing some really cool projects that I am excited about. But with moving and everything going on in my life and the new job, it's just been crazy hectic, and I haven't really even been recording anything. I've just been doing little bits and pieces of stuff when I could at night, in the morning, like now before I gotta go to work. I gotta go to work soon, so I figured while it's nice and pretty out, let me show you what's up and just stir the pot to get this going again, because I have been slacking on doing anything, but not in a lazy kind of way. It's just I've been so busy with life. What are you doing? Nothing? You weren't just hiding that tool? All right, let's get the spacer cut. Let's get this thing on and finalized. All right guys, so we got the rack on. I just put a little bit of paint on it just to cover up some of the silver bits and blobs here and there. One thing I'm noticing is it is way too black in the back of the bike. So here you can see the bike looks great, good theme, and then it just goes really dark back here, which isn't horrible, but the basket on it putting on is also black. So I'm definitely gonna have to do something in the back here. I like black, but this bike wasn't meant to be that dark looking. I wanted it to be a little bit more in your face, but from the front, it doesn't look bad. You can see what I'm saying though, I think from here. See, it's green, good color, and then it just goes really dark back here. But I just wanted to bring you in and show you where we're at and what we did. I didn't put the fender on yet. You can see the height, you see how much it's tucked right around the wheel, so it's not high. It's much lower than the other one, so I'm very excited about that, to have a much lower basket, a little lower center of gravity. All in all, looks great. So this is where we're at though with the brakes. So the only reason I put the paint on it is because I knew we were basically done. Now this is all bolted on nice and tight, so everything should be good here, but it looks pretty clean. I think it looks nice and clean. This thing is solid, guys. So this is how I did it. So you can see down in there. So I used Allen headed screws. This is way more official, way more sturdy. It looks way better and feels way more solid. So I'm about to mount the caliper, and then I'm gonna run all the rest of the cables, hook everything up, and then we're gonna start mounting the gas tank, and we're gonna take it for a ride for the very first time in about 3 months. It's been about 3 months, maybe a little more, since I rode this bike, and I still have yet to even try out the front suspension and the geometry and all that and how that all fits me, because that wasn't technically what was broken. It was the brakes that were broken in the rear. It all seems to be butter, and I really want to try it out. All I was waiting was this, and now this is basically done. So let's finish it up. Let's take it for a ride.